podcast with our welcome to the face that runs the place podcast, featuring your hosts from Newcastle, Ontario, Holly Johnson. Thank you. Just trying to shut the music off here. Hold on. Thank you. What an intro. And I've got our first guest laughing already. And please welcome. We'll get to why this is a song choice later on. The inaugural, our first guest. We couldn't have asked for a better one. Think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. From Oshawa, Ontario, Johnny Bastard. What a theme song.
That's quite the entrance. Thank you.
Did you expect that?
I did not see that coming.
Now, I'm going to be honest. I was going to go with Brutus the Beefcake's theme song, but I didn't think you or anyone else would have known what that theme song was.
I think I would have picked that one up, but yeah, that's a much more popular theme song.
I said I wasn't going to get into wrestling right away, but I have to. I do. Because
listen, it's all about passion. Right?
I have to. The wrestling, everybody knows that. Johnny knows. He's a wrestling fan. I was a huge wrestling fan. The story behind this song is that Shawn Michaels is one of the most well-known wrestlers of all time, if you know anything about wrestling.
One of the greats. And
his start really happened when he kicked Marty Jannetty through that barbershop window.
That's true.
So,
hence, kind of tied.
Hence, a little tie there.
Yeah, nice.
So that just goes to show the little, wrestling you with the barbershop tie. So, there we have it. So, Johnny Cuts. So, I want to talk to you about, of course, now, Johnny Cuts has been in business since 2014, right?
Yep.
I've been here since day one, basically. He started with, if you could see it over here, he started with one barber chair. And he's moved all the way up to now has 6 in the shop. He did an expansion. But I want to talk before I get into your story and talking about maybe, I want to talk to people about vision. And this is kind of the crux of the Face That Runs the Place podcast, and the fact that you kind of speak your vision. You kind of you inspired me to do this podcast, because honestly I kept saying to people, I'm going to do it. And I remember Johnny telling me, I'm going to do this barbershop, and he just showed me his vision. And then one day I walked into the shop that we're in, and I went, my jaw dropped. It really did. It hit the floor, and I just couldn't believe what I'd seen. He really did. It kind of reminded me when Brendan told me about his Muay Thai place and some of these small business. You have to really have that vision. And someone that talks about that is, whether you like him or you don't, is Conor McGregor. It's the same as he kind of envisions and says what's going to happen. And he really thinks is that visualization. And so can you speak to kind of how this all started with that, and maybe before you do that, maybe talk about why you got into barbering in the first place.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Paulie. A lot of people, may not know this about us, but we've been friends for a long time. And I always admired, one of the great things about you is I always admire that you're always looking to level up as well too. You were an entrepreneur yourself, and you always asked a lot of questions, and I'm just glad to be on your first podcast. It's kind of a fun thing to do, right? I've never been on a podcast before, but it's cool to be doing this with you. So yeah, for me, it's you talk about vision. I guess before the vision comes the passion. I was, let's go all the way back to visiting the barbershop. I remember, these memories of visiting a barbershop when I was younger, and the smells and the feeling of getting that fresh haircut. Back in the day, I used to have a barber who used to smoke pretty much one cigarette per customer. And, you remember all the different scents and the smells and the feels. And I remember feeling so comfortable in that environment, and being there with my grandfather, my father, and the rest of the community. and that really spoke to me. I really loved this magical little place. It was just a little nook, a little hole in the wall in Bowmanville where I grew up. But
downtown
Bowmanville,
Bowmanville.
Yeah, there was several barbers at the time downtown, but this one shop that we visited, it was great. And and then as I grew up and I loved this this feeling that I got from the barbershop. Well, then I felt there was I wanted to being sort of creative too, on the creative side of things. I felt like I wanted to try my hand at, this art of barbering. And really that story starts on Orchard Park, where I grew up. Orchard Park, shout out to OPP, Orchard Park Posse.
Strathmanor.
Okay. But, back in the day, I grew up in an area, in a subdivision where there was just lots of kids. This is before the internet. Right now I'm dating myself, but we had no internet. We had bikes, we had kids, we had just summertime fun. So everyone was out and about, and we would all hang out. And somewhere in probably in grade 10 or so, grade 11, grade 10, the summer of grade 10, grade 11 for me, we started having kind of doing sort of, actually, it really started with Chris Steele, one of our good friends, neighbor friends across the street. He came over with a set of clippers, and he asked if I could simply shave his head. And of course, the love of barbering and the barber shop, I was all about it. So I said, absolutely, Chris, sit down. Are you sure your mom's not going to shoot me for this? Said, no, Mrs. Steele's good. So we sat down and we buzzed his head, and I just thought that was a cool thing to do, right? Just running those clippers through his head.
So you fell in love with it right away.
Yeah. It was like my first introduction to haircutting, and it really happened by accident. But then the clippers that Chris brought over kind of stayed in the garage, and slowly a few other kids started asking or found out that I was doing these head buzzes, and next thing you know, all these kids were stopping by for summertime head buzzes, right? So just keeping it cool. And then it progressed to, these funky styles, these undercuts that guys were getting a little creative. And it was summertime. My parents really didn't care too much. So
now, how old were you then?
I would say I was probably around 14 or 15 or 16 at the time.
Were you making any money at that point?
No. This is just for fun,
okay,
right? So then it became sort of like a progression, and I was like, wow, I really enjoy doing this. I don't know really what I'm doing, but I enjoyed that people were coming to the garage, and it slowly progressed from there. Slowly progressed to me now visiting the barbershop and paying attention to what the barbers were doing. I remember going to the barbershop, and if it was busy, I'd stick around. If it was slow, if I knew I was next in the chair, I would shy away and wait for a few more customers to show up, because I wanted more time to sit and watch and observe. So that's kind of how I learned the craft a little out of the gates, just by watching them. And then I remember certain moments of how they would hold the clippers and bringing it back home and trying it on the boys. So shout out to all the boys who came out, and they really let me experiment with their head. And then it slowly progressed to the point where I actually started decking out my father's garage into a barbershop. So it was kind of cool. I had the middle van seats that were pulled out of my dad's Astro minivan that we used that as a waiting room lounge. A buddy of mine, Rob, brought in his old coffee table, and then we'd have I remember the freezer of my father had a freezer that wasn't in use, so I lined it with some nice rubber matting on top, and I placed on my tools. And at the time I was working at Canadian Tire, so they had this display model shelving that I brought over, and I'd store my equipment on. And slowly I progressed buying new tools, brushes, neck brushes. I found a little supply store in Oshawa. And it progressed to the point where I was actually I'm kind of getting there, right? I'm doing okay. Going back to the barbershops, recognizing how they would hold their comb in their hand, because that was a struggle, little things like that, where I'm and it would click. I'd be like, okay, that's how they're doing it. And I come home, and I was excited to try that on the boys. And it slowly progressed from, like I was saying, out of the gates, was a passion for me. Something cool, creative. I was creative myself. I enjoyed painting and art, so that sort of stuff kind of
something else I've noticed with you too, when we were at your house once, you picked up a guitar and you could play it, no problem.
It was
I've always struggled with those kind of things myself. And cutting hair, we've always joked, if you had he's Johnny's seen me try to collect poker chips, and he's always said, well, you can obtain them, you just don't know how to stack them.
That's right.
I'm like a little child, I can't actually stack them.
As a matter of fact, I remember sometimes knocking your chips over for fun to watch us struggle picking them up. But there is a bit of
at least I had his chips though, but. But you know, but to me, like I always love barbering. I mean, look, you're my first guest going to the barber. I've always had those same experiences.
Right.
But I wonder if someone with my kind of dexterity
you know,
with like I've always found guitars difficult. Is it that you found the passion and then you also like kind of had the ability, or you had to really, really develop it? Obviously, if you've ever seen Johnny cut hair, it's absolutely incredible. Like, you know, and and I've watched him train people, and just the speed in which he can do it. I think we said he's probably done around 80 to 100,000 haircuts. So in his lifetime, I mean, but if it's just the I don't think people really understand, a little off topic, but I think that they don't really understand until they come here, or you know, the level of barbering that's at this shop,
right?
Versus like if you just go and get your haircut somewhere else, like it is the fade. Like even Owen knows, like the fades, the actual level of detail, the care that you get. But I mean, not just the care, like actual like precision barbering. I just did like my haircut. We just got a training one done, and watching someone that's like, okay, they're trying to figure it out like I would, versus like someone that Johnny's just the flow. Like I forgot the style and flow stickers on my laptop.
Right.
But the style and flow, the actual, it's such a amazing talent that you guys have. Not just you, the Cody and Aaron, I mean, and everybody. Like, it's just amazing how you guys can just flow through the hair. Do you think that that's something that's like you have to have partially born with you too, or is that a double whammy?
Yeah, I think the dexterity, having maybe the creative juices, if you will. I mean, like I said, I was all about like playing with like clay when I was younger and molding and being creative in art class, and that sort of music, of course. I think there is a certain level of like creativity that you must possess, or you're about. But you know, playing guitar, I was all thumbs. Like, it was hard, and I would have to practice and practice and practice. And I believe that anyone could learn how to cut hair. It just depends on, and be good at it. It just depends on how much you're willing. Yeah, some people pick it up like a guitar and will strum away. Instantly they got it. Where others, they got to work on it. Like, I always had to work on playing guitar. Okay. So some people have it. Some people have it naturally, for sure. There's the natural abilities or natural touches, and they get it because it is a little bit of a finesse job as well. But as far as like you brought up the barbers here at the shop, and you know, I appreciate those kind words. But really, what we are is I strive to work with is always passionate people who really love the art of barbering and are really passionate. So that's the one thing I can say confidently about the shop, is that if you sit in someone's chair, whether it's my chair or one of the other barbers, they're going to be passionate barbers. I've been really fortunate over the years to work with so many passionate barbers here at the shop, and some have come and some have gone over the years, but we've had a little flow of barbers. But ultimately, I can always say that I am so grateful for the barbers we've had in the shop, and I'm grateful that the universe brought us together. And the passion always comes first. It's always about passion and delivering a good product. So I think if someone sits in the chair here, they're going to discover that. They're going to find that maybe slightly different skill levels, but always they're putting their 100% into it, and that's what's most important to me.
So I'll ask this question now. I was going to go into a little bit of vision again, but I'm going to ask a question that I have, just like as I didn't put this on the paper, so this is an off-topic piece here. So when I was a kid, I always thought of as a barber was a man, and I think that was usually the case back in the day, and a hairstylist was a woman. Right. Now, the first time I saw a barber haircutter was Patty. Right. Of course, she was second. I didn't before that. So I always thought maybe like I never thought, and then Mel, and I thought that, oh, that's weird. I honestly didn't know the difference at the time. Is that something that's changed? And are you happy to like how happy are you that there are women working in the shop? Obviously not right now, but that you've been able to. I wouldn't say break down barriers, because I don't know what the barriers were, because that was just in my mind. I didn't know the difference. So can you talk to some of the different, like, people that would wonder what the difference between a hairstylist and a barber would be?
Well, yeah, I would put it on the same sort of, like, I don't know if I want to use a stereotype as the word, but you have nurses, and like, when we were kids, we always thought nurses were female and doctors were male. And now we're seeing, so many men enter the industry. And it really comes down to what we were talking about, the passion. Do you have a passion for it? I know with Patty, with Mel, they had that passion. They both share same stories where they walk into a barbershop and they were like, instantly, they were like, this is what I'm about. I love this banter with the boys. I like the community vibes. There's a bit of a difference, right? Like and similar to the hair salon, where it has maybe, similar parallel, sort of, parallel sort of things. But, it's really comes down to the individual and what, like the art of barbering, the shaves, the hairstyles, all of that is sort of from the heart, right? Does that captivate someone? And same with nursing. It doesn't, man,
now for
woman.
ignorant people or not ignorant, well, when I say ignorant, I mean people that don't know. That's what ignorant means.
Yeah.
So hairstylists do cut women's hair where you guys don't. This is a men's hair cutter, correct?
Well, no, I mean, we have female clients.
Oh, you do?
Male clients, of course. It's sort of like here at the shop, we cut in a specific style, which is traditional men's hairstyling. This is a pretty important topic for us as a barbershop because, I like to share that with my barbers too. It's like, anyone coming in with hair, we cut. It's just man, woman, it doesn't matter to us. No. What we like to do is be honest. I had a lady come into the shop and she was looking for an inverted bob haircut, a very specific type of haircut. And, did I study that haircut? Did I practice that cut? Yes, I did. But that was over 23 years ago in hair school. So, it's all about honesty. Like, here's a cut that's out of my wheelhouse. So we just like to explain that this specific style of haircutting is out of our wheelhouse, right? Traditional men's cuts or like, shorter cuts, fun cuts with the clippers. Primarily, we use a lot of clipper work. We do some scissor work, of course. But just about being what's in our wheelhouse.
Well, if a woman's going to come in with short hair, what's the difference?
Right, of course. No, right. I mean, like, they prefer sometimes a barbershop because we do like getting close to the edges or a little bit more, say, confidence with the clipper. So, the door is open to everyone who has hair. It's just whether or not it's in our wheelhouse. And for that, obviously, we have our website and social media platforms. People can explore and understand what type of services we offer.
Let's get off traffic again. Let's talk about something awesome. Let's talk about something that this man right here has an app.
Oh, yes.
You have an app, and I'm going to share it in the description. There's a video that went along with this app on the launch that literally had me, I've watched it about 30 times, maybe more, and it had me laughing every time.
Shout out to Adrian James. Yeah. Yeah, he crushed that one.
And we're going to have to come back there too. So that you have an app now.
Right.
Talk us through the app and talk why are people going to go onto the app?
Yeah, I mean, like, the app was something we implemented less than a year ago, and we just saw a need, the industry, what makes it easier. So I guess the barbershop is all about tradition. My shop, if you walk in today and you check out the decor and the stations and the cabinetry and all that, I like to collect, like, antique and, industrial vintage style pieces. However, the technologies were always like, we always like to be one step ahead. I also admire technology. I like podcast. I like what we're doing here. I like systems. So, understanding the client's need, and the app came pretty, and I believe it's only a matter of time. We're starting to see more and more shops now. Maybe some are in the city, but they're starting to move towards this direction. Yep. And just like the booking app before that, we had a booking app, which was sort of like, maybe we were like first out of the gates with it. But, I mean, now everyone has them, and it's great. So, just whatever can make it a little easier and fun.
So we'll come back to some of the branding stuff, including the app, right? And how we went from Johnny the barber to Johnny the businessman to Johnny the brand name. But let's start again. Let's look at now. We know kind of how you got into barbering and the passion, and then of course I met you when you were working in the mall,
right,
at Joseph's and the barbershop, right? Mm-hmm. And then you were then deciding, take us through the decision to go from Joseph's or some of your time there, and then where it started to click, like, I want to not only just show up and cut hair, I want to be the face that runs the place. Oh, what a segue.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's kind of a funny story because
I really should have started with that.
I got to go back a step to answer that question. I was cutting hair out of the garage, and as I progressed and I got a little bit better as I moved into, tail end into high school, I finished my last year of high school at Curtis High, primarily to play soccer with the boys. And let me tell you, all the boys there, Andreas and Rob and Nico, all of the boys, I mean, these guys, they knew I cut hair, and they were so supportive of this. It was unreal. So shout out to all the boys from high school, man. Like, these guys, they were really like the guys who spread the word. Anyone they introduced me to, I'm the new kid on the block, and they're introducing me to, oh yeah, if you need a haircut, you go see Yanni. Go see Yanni. Yanni is what they call me, like, that's my Greek name. So people still refer to me as Yanni or Johnny. But so they would say, go see Yanni, go see Yanni. So that support was unreal, and it really elevated me to, like, take it more serious. Now, out of the gates, I was a little, outside of high school, choosing a career, coming from an immigrant family. Now, some people know that about me here. Like, most of my close clients know that I come from an immigrant family, from mom and dad who came from Greece, and we were pretty poor growing up. And as we got to the tail end of high school, at that time there wasn't too many talk about trades, and I also felt like I wanted to do something great for my parents, and represent them and their hard work. They came to Canada to give us a better opportunity, a better life. So I felt like maybe barbering wasn't, good enough. So I was seeking more higher level of education, and my grades were pretty good. So I pursued an option to go to St. Lawrence College in Kingston and take medical lab technology, where I spent 1 year. Then I transferred back to Oshawa to finish up a food and drug technology program in Oshawa at Durham College. Yep. And during that whole period of time, I was still cutting hair. And it wasn't until the end of college that I discovered I was doing a placement, and I wasn't very happy in the field. I was studying some food and drug technology, some medicines and such, and I was coming home. At that time, I didn't even have a cell phone. I had a pager, and my pager's popping off, and my father would just open the garage and let the boys wait till I got home Friday afternoon. I come home to a garage. I remember this one specific Friday where I came home to 4 people in the garage waiting, 4 buddies, and I was excited to cut their hair. So I sat down and started cutting hair, and that was the moment where I thought, like, okay, this is it. Like, this is where I need to be. Mm-hmm. My father was always very supportive of it. He always thought I should be a barber. He thought it would be great for me. But again, I thought it wasn't going to be good enough, right? So after, sitting on it, actually what happened was the following week on the Friday, I finished work early, my placement, and I walked by the hair school, and I inquired. And they shared with me that there was a program starting on Monday, a new class. And I just, on a whim, I said, sign me up. And I ended up calling my boss and telling him I couldn't come in on Monday because I'm starting school. He said, what are you talking about? You just finished school. I said, well, no, I want to pursue, this barbering course or hairdressing course at that time, it's called. And, my mom was like, wow. And my father was very supportive. They were very supportive, of course. Good. But, that's kind of where it got to. And to lead to the question of, I got to be honest. When I went to hair school, it was a 10-month program. And I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter the field, and I was really passionate. I felt like I was behind schedule because I had gone to to college for so many years, and I felt like, maybe I need to get on this. So I thought out of the gates, I'm going to work for somebody for about a year, and then boom, we're going to, entrepreneur, here I come, the world of entrepreneurship. However, when I finished school and got into the world of work, I quickly realized that I don't know anything. Like, everything I thought I know, I don't know. Yeah. And especially the haircuts. Like, these barbers were knocking off flat tops and cuts I've never seen before. I'm like, wow, I am really not where I was. I was humbled. So the longer I worked, the more I realized I have a lot to learn. And over the years, it was the year 2002, 2003, 2004. There was no social media or YouTube like there was today. So I was a little bit like, I think I reflect on that time. If we had these tools today, would I have gone into entrepreneurship a lot
quicker?
sooner. Yes,
Probably.
100%. I think I would have.
Yeah.
However, at that time, everything was slow moving. I took a couple of night school courses, but it was really about 12 to 13 years, just shy of 13 years
It's
of
amazing
spending
how
time
many-
in the mall cutting hair, building clientele, learning about the industry and about entrepreneurship more than I did about haircutting to get to the point.
It's amazing how many tools are available now for kids, for aspiring entrepreneurs with all of the YouTube video. There's literally
That's
so
unbelievable.
much. And now, like, I look back, I was just joking around with Owen. I said, when I was 11, I didn't know what a gym was.
Yeah.
There was no Good Life. There was no. I didn't know what those. I didn't even like. I'm taking Owen to the gym now. He doesn't even know what a gym is, and that's because there was no internet. There was nothing. There was nobody lifting weight. I didn't know.
No.
No one told me nothing. We were just kind of always in the dark until I remember hearing about the internet and going, what is that?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible now. I
pretty
remember
crazy.
Going
It
back
was.
to playing guitar, I remember, back in the day, I'd walk down to the 7-Eleven. I would grab the guitar magazine that I couldn't afford and sneak some photocopies in. Okay. Then I would pay for the photocopy. Sometimes I get caught and the lady behind the counter would say, "You can't do that." But then I'd bring the photocopies home, then to listen to like Q107, trying to catch that like Little Wing, Jimi Hendrix song, to record it on cassette, to then have a reference to play it with the guitar tablature music. Now that can be done instantly in a second. You have all this information in front of you. It's incredible. And, there's obviously something special about that whole, those memories. But, I mean, can you imagine how much further ahead we would have been? And it's great that these tools exist for the barbers now. And it's going to grab, like a lot of young barbers, they won't have to wait as long and they'll be further ahead for it. And that's wonderful too, right? It's just the time, that's just the times we live in, right?
Well, we'll pop in now to the vision in a second about, okay, we're at Joseph's, we're on that timeline, and then you telling, I'll just talk to myself, and you telling me, I'm not going to spoil it for everyone how well you articulated how it was going to happen, but you then kind of collecting items and just really coming up with, like, I'm doing this, like, I'm going to do this. And of course, at the start, even like with anything, even me doing this thing, like, it was like, oh, well, but eventually at some point you really hold yourself to it. Like, I'm dead set. You have a vision at first, but then there's like some point in time where there's that vision. So we'll talk to that in a second, but let's take a step back before we do that. Let's talk about Johnny Cuts, the hard worker. Like, I have never, for people that are aspiring entrepreneurs, if you look at Johnny and say, I want to be him one day, and I've spoken to a few other entrepreneurs that want to come onto the podcast too. One of them said, well, I don't want to give my secret sauce away. And I started laughing. I said, you are the secret sauce. Like, there's no one that could do what you do, and not Johnny, but Sam, but, and there's other guys, a lot of these people have a very, something in common, and it's and I'm not trying to brag about you or anything else. It's just the truth. It's just kind of how you're wired. As what time do you wake up usually, and then what time do you stop cutting hair at times? Like, I don't think, because you can't, like, when you go on the app, it's hard to get an appointment here. And the truth is, he's not trying to brag about himself or anything. This is just the truth, so people know, like, if you want to be good at something and you want to be the best and you want to keep a business going, sometimes you got to work like this guy. And I think that's important too, because I don't want this to always be like, fa la 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 la, this is going to be an easy road necessarily, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's, I think when I reflect on what I've done here, I mean, 9 years ago, I opened the shop. I jumped from the mall to the shop, and I had a vision, of course, and I was excited. Like, I was almost obsessed with the idea of opening my own shop.
Yep.
I mean, and that obsession came from a lot of places. That obsession, the push behind me, obviously my parents, my mom and dad, who came to Canada with nothing, and to watch them grow, and to watch them, they opened up their own little business. They had a little restaurant business, and it was unbelievable to see them do what they did, the hard work and the hours, and my brother and I, we'd tag along, and we'd have to, and we were helping in the restaurant as well. So that was part of us. But I think, like, we didn't have a sort of normal upbringing that way, like traditional. We were very poor, and we were always struggling. Like, every day was kind of like, okay, we were all living in fear. We were living in a country my parents couldn't speak the language that well. And So that's kind of where my background and growing up in the family business, working very hard, that was already there. I saw that. I learned that on my mom and dad's lap growing up. So that was there for sure. But I think also I had the push from them, and I wanted to do something to honor them. And all my friends too, who were supporting me and who were saying, go see Yanni, go see Yanni, go see Yanni, Johnny Cuts. Like that was like, that driving, that support. Even you, Paulie, like over the years when I tell you my dreams and my ideas, you'd be pushing me. So, it started with that support system. I couldn't have done it without the support of everyone. Of course, the family, at home, my wife, I remember us going for a walk and she's like, you got to do this. Like it was a year before I opened. It was 2 years before I opened, and we set a date. And she's like, okay, summer of 2014, it has to be your time. We marked it on the calendar, and it was all that support and everyone pushing me to this point that I was able to then open Johnny Cuts. And you touched on a really true topic. It's like,
speak to how many hours for these people that are watching, the entrepreneurs. Like, I'm not saying you have to put this many hours to be successful. However, what kind of hours have you put in these 9 years?
Well, it's funny. I don't really think about the hours.
Or not hours.
I understand what you're saying here. I understand where the question's coming from, but I think it's finding something you're really passionate about that really drives you, because that's going to be the driving force. And then if I stop and think about the hours, it's kind of insane, of course. But but I think there has to be that driving force to want to create something, to want to do something. And now for me, for my family, for my children, now I want to leave something behind to show them that, listen, I came from here. My parents came from here and went to there. I'm coming from here, and I'm going to come here. And then now you can, like, let's keep pushing forward. Let's keep elevating. Let's keep representing the generation from before. It's very important to me to represent them and also represent the future. And I think that's how it became. Now the hours, of course, Paulie, it's crazy. Like when I think about my business and my day to day, you ask me what time I wake up. I'm usually up at 6. I like to get into the gym for a half hour if I can, 3-4 times a week. It doesn't always happen, of course, but then I'm in the shop and I'm getting ready for the day. I mean, I do have a core hours for my barbershop, but then I'm also working before and I'm staying late sometimes. So, for example, a Tuesday to Wednesday, I work 9 to 6. And I usually schedule an hour break. But the reality is I'm here at 7 and I'm setting up, getting coffee going, pot number 2 going, cleaning up the espresso machine, filling up the hot towel machines, filling up the hot foam machines, cleaning the shop, putting things in order, making sure the sugar's filled and we have enough coffee cups and they're stamped, and we got like all the little pieces of the pie to make sure that when the doors open, the music and the playlist is on.
It's amazing.
That when you walk in, everything's in order, my station and everything. Now, do I start at 9? No. I'm usually here. I have a morning crew of people. I got like a regular group of morning people, and sometimes that starts as early as 7 to 7:30. So that's my regular start time. Yeah. And then through the day, I book an hour lunch. Let's be honest, I'm probably getting a half-hour lunch. However, by the time I clean my station, get food, mic, sit down, I'm probably really only sitting for about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes in a day to eat. And then I'm back on the floor, 6 o'clock. Certain nights I've learned to carve out, like the personal time. Thursdays and Friday nights I might stay a little later. So let's look at Thursday and Friday. Thursdays and Fridays are again instead of 9 till 6, it's 9 till 7, so it's an extra hour later. Now my family knows that perhaps there might be some clients that Johnny needs to take care of, or that dad, mom, that I'll have to take care of a little later. So they don't expect me home right at 7. They know I can stay a little later, like I'm doing this week. Yep. Stay until 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30. But then there's the close up and the clean up and taking the garbage and empty the garbage bins and all of that, where maybe I'm not getting home until like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then, of course, Saturdays I do work an 8 till 2. But again, I'm usually starting at 7, 6:50.
And you're trying to instill that in your son, too. I've seen Cosmo here. I've seen Cosmo at the shop a lot in the summertime. He was here helping out with the shop. He gets to see his dad do that. With me, I'm trying to, I feel like I'm a pretty hardworking guy, too. And I try to instill that with Owen. We were talking about hockey, we were talking about hockey the other day, and it's like crazy. It's all this stuff, and it's like, but I look at Owen, I go, if you want something, you just heard how hardworking Johnny had to be to accomplish success. Johnny has a successful barbershop. There's no doubt about it. He went from 1 to 6 chairs here. I mean, if you saw it, you can see the background, but if you've ever been in Johnny Cuts, you got your haircut here, you just know it's like all precision. Everything is all class all the time. Right behind me, you get an espresso. Okay, there's a coffee ready for you. They treat you like $1 million here at this barbershop. Every time you come in, and when your hair's done, you feel great. It's almost like you went for a massage, but you got your hair cut. And it's like the level of like, and the fact is, like, but these things that people don't understand, and I want them to understand, because I know Johnny very well, and he doesn't like to talk about it. I could tell he didn't even want to say it. He didn't want to say it. I don't want to say it. But the truth is that is the crux of what the small business owners are like, and that's why they are the bread, the butter. That is why they have my respect, because they grinded, they earned everything that they got, and honestly, they really are the fuel that drives our economy. And people like Johnny and other small business owners that really want, and without small businesses, I mean, I grew up in Bowmanville, right? Like, and you said the barbershop there, right? Without those places, and that they just said, you know what, let's take the Walmarts and wipe these places out. We'll all just be a carbon copy of every single town, and it would just have no character like this place does. And to me, that's why this podcast was started in the first place, because I really wanted to shed light on people like Johnny, the ones that are really like I said, the fuel that drive our economy and make things special and different. And a place like this is like, just hearing him pour out his heart of how hard he had to work. And like I said, that's exactly why I started this podcast, and it was for no other reason than that. It was just like, these are the people that I've always looked up to. Always, yeah, John, you know that. They're always the people that I've looked up to.
I appreciate that, Paulie, but I will say too, like, when it comes to my hours, and I appreciate that you appreciate that, and it does take a lot of hours. It's crazy, and sometimes when I reflect on it, it's almost a little bit like scary. Like, wow, Johnny, you're really,
too much, eh?
Yeah, a little too much, and you got to chill. Now, one thing I will say is, I have it in me. I'm okay. Work within your comfort level if you're looking to open a business. If you can't put, like, some people can't put 13, 14-hour days in like that. That's crazy. It is crazy. But I've been able to condition myself. I have a good metabolism. I'm very healthy, knock on wood. So I'm able to do that. I also have the support system of my family at home.
Yeah, they know.
Deb, the kids, my mom, everybody who helps support me. So, for example, I do work for two, right? My wife primarily stays home with the kids, and when I come home, I have dinner on the table. When I get to work, there's a breakfast and a lunch made for me. So I'm picking up things. My clothes are clean. The kids, the sports, of course, I carve out time to make sure that there's like Johnny the dad too, right? And that's more important than anything to me, of course. But there's also that support team. So that's what I would say to people is like, work within your means too. You can't just look at people and say, okay, well, I guess I got to work 15 hours a day if I want to be an entrepreneur.
No, and that's not what I'm saying.
Because, but of course, I know you're not. But just so the listeners at home can understand too, I think it comes passion first. Put your heart into it. Give a damn. And you'll get there, right?
Yes. Then it'll fuel.
Too. Yeah,
then fuels.
Yeah, you will. And let's talk about fuel. Like it will fuel you to keep moving forward, to like grind it out a little longer. And again, it all depends on what works for you. I had to learn the hard way. You won't believe how many times I come home to a very, very lonely dinner table with a single plate, a dim light under it, cold meal. Deb and wife and kids are gone to bed. It's after 9, whatever time it is, 9:30, 10. It's a quiet house. And it was pretty depressing to come home to this like really cold meal where I was supposed to be home at 6:30, right? For dinner. Dinner was on the table. Where's dad? And I put business first. And in a way I had to, but at the same time, I learned a lot the hard way that you have to put boundaries. Boundaries are the single most important thing you could do with your business too, right? Make sure touch on what we're talking about too. Like, so I was able, and I learned, a good friend of mine, a good doctor friend, who really, I joke with him when he's in my chair. I say, I should be paying you, doc, because he's a psychiatrist, and I'll pick his brain for information, and my woes sometimes. So shout out to the good doctor. But, you know, he shared with me one time an analogy. He said, Johnny, like, back when I was like really kind of lost in my business, he said, Johnny, you're in the jungle right now and you're clearing out space in that jungle. And that space represents your family time, your friends, you know, your personal time. But what happens to that space in the jungle over time? The jungle fills it in, okay? So you're back in the jungle. What you need to do is build a big border, big wall. You have the big giant doors you open up and you close and you enter the jungle. That represents your work and your passion and that part. And when you come out of the jungle, that's your personal time. Put those boundaries. And you know what? That night I came home and we sat down with the family. I talked to Deb. We put times and boundaries in place. And I will not miss a family dinner on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday nights. Those are nights where Thursdays and Fridays I might work a little later. But, I mean, it doesn't matter if the Pope walks in right now. Like, I'm sorry, 6 o'clock, I can't really help you. There's always the exception, but really it had to be something pretty severe for me to, you know, that's my family time. And I learned that it's not the customer, it's me. It was me who needed to put those boundaries in place and make sure that, no, this is my family time. I'm sorry, I don't work in this. So once I learned that, things became a whole lot easier for me as well, too. Unfortunately, another lesson that took some time to get to.
So I did have a barber before you in the Waverly Plaza who did cut the Pope's hair.
Oh, wow. Is that right, eh?
Yeah, and he showed
He must have
picture
stayed late.
every time. It was in the bottom of the convenience, like the hairdresser, and then he had his own barber chair downstairs. And
Dinner
an old guy
with the family?
And
Damn,
he just walk over. It was a great shave.
Pope's
I gotta
coming.
give it to him. So yeah, there you go. So maybe if the Pope comes, maybe, right? So,
Yeah.
but you know, that's great that you share that with everybody. What do you? So I know that you know, you're at Joseph's and you started plotting your escape, and started thinking, I'm not escape necessarily, but I want to be my own. I want to own my own place. And honestly, we look at this place right now, and it's like we're sitting in the area that wasn't even here before when we started. You literally knocked these walls down.
Back
Break
bar.
the walls down. No, like, you know,
Coffee
they really
shop, yeah.
did break the
We're
walls
in the
down.
coffee shop right now, Johnny.
Yeah, the coffee. We are in the coffee shop.
bar.
The coffee.
Yeah.
And there was one chair, but like I remember walking in and my jaw hit the floor because you described exactly what it was going to look like. It's not like you doubt people when they tell you. You're just like, you kind of like, okay, good. I hope you can do that, and I hope that you don't really actually. And they're the ones that have in the like you don't not believe them, but you're like, until you see it, it's different, of course, right? So like, you know, tell somebody about it, and then it happens. You're like, whoa, I can't believe it. Literally looked a brick, everything. He told me everything that was going to happen. He actually invited me down to his basement to get my haircut a couple times after I met him at a poker game. But there he started, like, you know, as we moved on, he started telling me, like, I'm gonna start my own shop. He started showing me stuff like this and this and this. Plans. So you started literally building it like from scratch. Like there was no like, you didn't buy like another barber like that one in the Oshawa Center that was like, here's your franchise. Like you literally, everything here was built from scratch.
Right.
I mean, how did you think that was going to work? And like, how confident were you? Like, with the clientele, like, talk us through how big of balls you had to do that.
Well, I was pretty nervous to take the plunge. I was really nervous. Like a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people who are interested in the world of entrepreneurship, but they get pretty nervous and I don't, it's the unknown. I think that's the scariest. It's like so for me, that's, I guess, what it came down to was the unknown. But I knew I had this vision, and I really wanted to do it. I remember having a list of all my close friends and family members. It was about 140 people, and I'm looking at this list. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure every single one's gonna come help me out. Like I had my rent, my expenses, and I was banking. I needed every single one of these clients to come in so I could pay the rent here at the shop, and then the bare minimal bills at home. And I was so scared, like thinking, oh gosh, please, I hope they all come in. Little did I know that they were not going to let me fail. They were not. These guys catapulted me to the next level, of course. So for someone who's interested, I would say, you know, build that sort of like support system. Your friends, your family. Share, like I did with you. Share your plans. They will get excited for you, and they will help you. It's amazing how much they will not let you fail.
That's what happened here.
I always joke
That's
around.
Why we're here.
I always joke around with my 5-star rating on Google. Like I always say, guys, like, thank you so much for the 5-star. But next time, like, 4 is good because like 5's a lot to live up to, right? And people would put the most extravagant post out there saying the best of the best things, which is like, thank you to everyone who ever wrote a post or said something nice about Johnny Cuts. And that's something that, like, you know, will take you to the next level. Yeah, those are big shoes to fill when someone comes in and goes, yeah, I'm here because of your reviews and 5-star. I'm excited to experience it. So, but that also makes sure that I'm like the best I can be. And I always joke around with people saying, hey, thank you. If you want to give me a 5-star, you know, 4 stars is good with me, right?
No,
So
you were
like
in a nice little house, like that you had that you were paying off and when we met there, I mean, that was where the basement was.
Right.
And that's where we started, you know, so it was like, you were literally like, I'm going to go back to this again, is that you were literally buying chairs, saving up your money, barbering things for outside. Like, he was buying, like, all the time. Just he would go to garage sales or online. He was buying. You were just literally, as you're working at the one place, plotting your little, like, you had it all going on. And you kept telling me, like, I remember one time he gave me an hour and a half haircut. And it was like, yeah, I had the whiskey going and the guitar going. And it was like, it was nice. All right. You don't get that anymore. Right. So, you know.
Next.
I know it's not like that either. So, you know. But, like, you know, but that, like talk about, like, I thought that was the cool part. It was like, you know, you're literally, like, in your brain, you're always ticking, like, you know, because sometimes you take it for granted even being in here. Even me, it's like, you know, I'm like, oh, yeah, like, it's Johnny Cuts now. But before I can't, like, for the first, I mean, now I'm thinking about it, but, like, when you don't think about it, you really take this place for granted. And can't you have, like, day by day, can't you just sometimes go, like, you know, even to the point where you're like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? It was such an amazing feeling when this thing started, man. And it still is. Well, it really is.
It's funny you say that because when I about saving and collecting, like I said, we grew up kind of poor and, you know, it was always like, you know, day by day in a sense that we were just grinding to survive. And, you know, one of the stories I like to share sometimes is my memories from growing up in a little entrepreneurial house where my mom and dad had their little Greek restaurant. It was basically a little family restaurant. It was simple, but there was passion behind what they did, and they were so excited given this opportunity to come to Canada and you know, fulfill the Canadian dream and give their children, you know, better, you know, education and a better chance than they ever had or ever could imagine to have. So, you know, like I said earlier, I learned off their laps, but, you know, I remember a few stories from the restaurant I'd like to share with you. Like, one was my father, there was an IGA in town, and every day they would have in the mornings, they would have a discount sort of bread section. It was just a little, like, shelf, okay, and it had some discounted breads. They were still good, but they were going to expire soon, right?
Yeah.
Within a day or two. So, and my father, I remember, especially in the summer months, we would, you know, wake up early, be the first ones at the IGA, whatever time they opened, 7 o'clock, and 6 o'clock, it was early. I remember, you know, getting into the store to grab the baked goods, right? Like to try and grab the breads on a bit of a sale, right? So we can make the bacon and eggs in the morning with the toast.
Yeah.
And the crazy part about the story is that there was another entrepreneur in town. He owned a Chinese restaurant, Chinese gentleman, and he ended up having a similar breakfast style thing in the morning where the two of them would, like, they were rushing to get the bread that was on sale. And I just love that. Like that, where sometimes we'd get there before he would. Other times, this gentleman would get there before us. And my father would be like, damn, I should have, I lost the key. You know, maybe there was a reason why he was like a minute or two late and he'd blame himself for not getting there sooner.
I think I only met your dad once, and it was here. And you know what? You got another story about your dad, but I can't share it on this podcast.
He was a great man. He died 5 years ago, almost of ALS. But you know what? I learned from him. And this is a good segue. One other story I want to share about the restaurant that's really close to my heart. Like, I almost want to draw a picture of it. Was I remember being in the restaurant, and it wasn't a very busy restaurant. It was on the 115 highway. And like I said, a little family restaurant. And one day, it was a slow day. A gentleman came in, and he ordered a hamburger. And the place was empty. And I remember my mom taking the order, come to the back, and my dad's cooking the burger, and my mom would jump in there. And I have this memory that's etched in my brain of, like, I almost want to draw a picture of it because it's that clear. And it was the two of them working together on the patty and on the burger. And my mom saying to him, make it in Greek, make it nice, fiastoreo, 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 and making it good and nice. And they put it all into that burger. And I never forgot that, you know, like that was something that was like, wow, they're really like, that was something that was, you know, important, right? It's something that care. Like how you remember specific moments in time and memories. And that was one too, like where I was like, wow, they really, that level of care, right? So
I don't know if you remember, you had I don't know if it's still up or not, or if it's hosted or not, but you had a 360-degree tour of this place. Is that still around?
Yeah, right now it's down.
Okay, but you had it either way. You had it.
Yeah.
And it literally had like a little dot on everything in here about why every single thing was in here.
Yeah.
And it was like, to me being a huge, I'm obviously a Johnny Cutt's #1 fan, obviously, right? But, you know, it's like, to me, I was reading them all. Like, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. I'm sure there's other fanboys out there too. But.
Yeah, going back to that, where I was like kind of segue, it's a story of the passion and my father grabbing the breads. The reason, you know, I was collecting, Paul, is because we didn't have much money. And I knew I wanted to do this, and I knew that it was going to take time. So something like, I remember one of the first pieces I collected was the front desk. It's an old vintage industrial front desk that was fully restored. I absolutely loved it. I bumped into a guy on Instagram at the time who was doing restoration of these pieces. It could have been on Kijiji I found him, but then long story short, I found him, and he was doing restorations of different cabinets that you see in the shop now. I think I have about 6 or 7, 8 pieces here in the shop of his, but they're expensive, of course. Like the front desk was $1,200 at the time for this vintage old school front desk. I remember bringing it home, and my dad going like, "What are you doing with this?" I said, "It's for the shop, Dad." And half of the garage, little section of the garage, became Johnny's collection of pieces. And my dad saying, "Why you spend your money now?" He didn't understand, like, you know, that kind of that, you know, first of all, those pieces you're not going to find when you need it. But more importantly, like he understood too, that you needed to save and collect. And make it happen and grow. Because, you know, it's one of those things where I don't know how to live any other way. Paulie, we talk about this a lot, you and I, about that sort of like, you know, coming up a little on the poor side and then saving money. And when I opened the shop, every single piece in here, from the chair to the lights, the fixtures, everything was covered. It was paid for. And it was a transition of saving and buying and saving and collecting. By the time I was done with my dad's garage, half the garage was filled with Johnny Cutt's gear, right?
Half of your mom's garage is filled right now, actually.
Well, yeah. That's a different story.
It is.
More gear. However, when it comes
from
to
an
this
old
place,
employer.
Well, regardless,
that was awesome.
The point is that like we saved and we built a place, and now, like, you know, I think that's an important lesson to learn too as well, because listen, people want to open a small business and they're like, you know, they're taking out loans and you know, putting a lot. I think the best way to do it, honestly, is if you can just, you know, have a vision, stick to it, save your money, buy pieces, accumulate it. Because now, you know, I'm so grateful I did this, because fast forward 9 years later, that money that I've put in, and I'll be honest, it was a lot of money when I accumulate all the money I put into the chairs, especially when like now each barber chair, I have 6 of them in here, and each barber chair roughly retails for about $8,000, right? So, you know, it was a lot of money. And 9 years later, I can honestly say that this business, I still haven't taken out that money that business still owes me. I still haven't touched it, because it's tough. You know, we went through COVID, we went through the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of business, where, you know, like, I'm so grateful that I did that, because it was like almost like I always think of it as a car. Like, instead of buying a dream vehicle, you know, a Cadillac or a Ferrari or a Porsche, something, you know, a cool $100,000 car, say, I bought my dream job. And I'm okay. Like, the car would have depreciated. Maybe it would have held some value, but I'm okay with it, right?
Yeah.
When you open your own business and you invest that money and then you start working, it's like that money's gone. We did it, and now we're on to the next thing, right? So, you know, that's something I would definitely recommend to people, is like, save your money, buy, slowly grow, build towards something, and be ready. And don't take any loans. If you want to survive, my recommendation is
what about grants, though?
Well, grants are one thing for sure. If you can secure some grants, that's very smart, right? Yeah. But you know, yeah, I would just say, like, do it on your own, save your money. It's going to give you your best opportunity for success. Now, some businesses, I understand you can't do that. You know, they're very expensive. just baby steps and get there and make sure the time is right and the financially you can afford to do it, because that was a really big, I think, piece of the pie for me, was that I didn't take out big loans and had to pay big bills,
Yeah. Grind it out piece by piece.
Yeah. And then, of course, like when things like, say, for example, COVID hit, right? I was always of the mindset that, you should always have, I do lease the space here. I don't own it. So, paying rent, having, at least 3 months worth of rent too was very important to me. Mm-hmm. So when COVID hit, I felt it was scary, but I had months 1, months 2.
Now let's talk about COVID a little bit, because like that was a tough time for you.
Sure,
it sure was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was here for it, and I saw
a lot of small businesses.
A lot of small, some of them didn't make it.
No, a lot.
And that was a crazy time. That was actually on some of one of the things we're going to talk about. So I'll just talk about it now. You brought it up. Like talk about like how you feel about how everything happened there with what the government did to you guys, and then also, just how much that squeezed you.
Well, I think in any business, if you're going to, enter the world of entrepreneurship, you're going to have, I think it's impossible, there's those days that Mama always said, like, you'll have days like this, moments where, this was that moment for me. Like, I kind of felt like through my lifetime experience of running a business, I hope to do this for the rest of my life. There's going to be moments like this that are going to test you, and that was certainly one. But going back to what I said earlier, for me, I always felt it was important, just in case of an emergency, illness, anything, knock on wood, something happened, that you would have 2 to 3 months worth of rent, 4 months worth of rent covered.
Yep.
So when COVID first hit, I was like, this is crazy. As a matter of fact,
because you were rolling at that point.
Things were. That
rolling.
was at the peak. We had 6 barbers. Everything was happening.
Went from 1 to 6.
It was great. It was at the peak of my business.
Yes.
And fast forward almost 3 years later, it certainly took its toll. It changed the game. Barbering has kind of changed since then, and that gets to that in a second. But what I wanted to, maybe some important lessons I learned, was that you got to have some money set aside, right? The government came in and offered us rent subsidy. I'm not sure if people know about it or not, but really what it was 75% of the rent they were giving us back, okay?
Yeah.
Now, it was really crazy. Out of the gate, 75% of the rent, the landlord had to be on board with this system, with this grant, so to speak, okay? First of all, the landlord had to approve it and say, okay. And the deal was this, that the landlord was going to bite the bullet on 25% of the rent. I was going to had to pay for 25% of the rent.
Yeah.
I would pay 25% of the rent, and the government would cover the next 50% of the rent, right?
Oh, okay.
So I feel bad. My landlord, we have a great landlord over here, and shout out to Mr. Canna, and he was great. He jumped on that right away. Where some landlords were like, why should I have to pay, right?
Right.
No, it's not my problem, right? So it wasn't until later on that the government, after the next lockdown, that they introduced, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to cover 75% of the rent. I'm not sure how they worked it out with the landlords, but I know for me, I was on the hook always for 25% of the rent when we were closed. I didn't expect it. I did not expect that. Wow. And in a way, this is going to sound cold-hearted, but I felt like, thank you, but isn't this what we should be preparing for, those hard times? And sometimes this is maybe, I don't want to be careful with how I say this, but if a business is closed because it's not prepared, then maybe that's a lesson to be learned for future businesses and future entrepreneurs. Like, you got to be prepared. Now, we got lucky.
You should have pointed right at the camera and said,
you got to be prepared. You have to be ready. You have to be prepared.
Ready, guys.
So, for me, of course, those grants came into play big time, because we were closed for almost 11 months in total.
That's crazy.
Right? So those grants, I didn't have that much rent put away, right? That would have maybe ruined us as well. Mm-hmm. But there was so much other things that were, backwards, that made no sense. We could have a whole podcast on the government and its rollout with COVID. I'm very grateful for the grants and for the rent relief, but they did so many things that were just not right. For example, one thing that a lot of people don't know about is a wage subsidy program, which states that if you come back from COVID and your business sees a loss in revenue, okay, gross revenue for that month before, compared to the month when COVID wasn't around, okay, if it's all a loss of up to 30% you max out at 70% rent relief, 75% wage subsidy. So that meant that we would see 75% of all the wages back into our pocket. Now, at that time, I had a discussion with the government saying, well, listen, at that time, we had increased our hours, we increased our pricing because I saw that we needed to make those changes.
Yep.
Aaron came back from Australia. Cody was busier. So our revenue was the same as the month before. However, it was costing me way more money to run and operate my business. So it wasn't apples and apples. And anyway, we can go down this rabbit hole of what they did right and what they did wrong.
Well, actually,
but some of that stuff I was on the hook. And other businesses I heard that some of the big businesses were getting like big money in wage subsidies.
And that's not right.
And we didn't, it wasn't right. Apples and apples weren't. However, regardless, that was a perfect example of why you need to be ready. Because, to be honest, during that period of time, I took a reduced paycheck. Like we're talking about 50% reduction in my own paycheck for the duration of COVID. Right? So how did I survive? Well, I got to be honest. I survived on working a lot and gratuities, and that helped out. People were very supportive.
Yep.
And I just want to take this moment to thank everyone, all of our clients that really got us through that difficult period of time. Like without that support, it's hard. But I also will say that I was prepared as well. I was prepared to make the sacrifices. I was prepared to pay the rent and have that money put aside. So, it's very important. Like one lesson that I'll take away is be ready, guys. One lesson you could take away from this podcast when it comes to COVID or opening a business, you have to be ready for the unexpected and have that buffer built in.
It really came out of nowhere. Like you're looking at honestly the most successful barbershop around, period. I mean, at the time for sure, still now. But at the time it was like 6 barbers. Like couldn't get in here. People are like, oh, can we go to Johnny's? It's like 2 weeks. 2 weeks now to get Johnny now it's still a month and a half. It's crazy, but but he had the full 6 and things are flowing. And all of a sudden the virus comes around and we all had to go inside and Johnny's telling you, and I think it's probably the best lesson I wasn't necessarily expecting this, is to be ready. Be ready, have your money ready. Don't necessarily rely on loans and things like that, and get he talked about his hours too, and that you don't necessarily have to have the exact same work ethic as him, or not work ethic. You look at me personally, I can't do that. I can't do 14 hours. I can't. I feel like I'm pretty I can get going too, but at the same time, with my mental health, I can't do that many hours. But that's not to say that somebody who can't do that many hours in a day or whatever can't run a business. That's for sure.
Right. Some people say, 5 hours sleep is enough, Paulie. No, it depends on you. I need that full. At least 7.5 to feel my best. Sometimes 8. Over the weekend, I got lucky. I slept in for 9 hours. I got 9 hours of sleep. So for me, some entrepreneurs are saying, 5 hours, rise and shine, get at it. So it all depends on the individual too. It's you can't really look at one person or, look at an example of many people and then also know yourself and your limits. And because there's no point if you're running a business and then you're sick, that's not good, right? And a lot of people look at me and I've heard it so many times, where they're they may be concerned about me or worried, my family, all my friends, because they see me work, but I feel good. I got to be honest and say that I do feel good, and I do push it, and I'm tired at times, but I feel like this is what's necessary right now, and I do feel comfortable doing it, so I don't feel like I'm jeopardizing my health, right? I don't feel that way. So that's very important too.
And it's nice to have a surround system like me, like your other friends and the family. Of course, your barbershop to a lot of people that can help you when they feel like you're falling out of those places too. Like if you're a small bit, you should listen to your friends. You should listen to that's little technical difficulties. But so I want to before we get into anything else, there's something sitting right in front of you there. I want to talk about another business project that you've gotten into, another small business. Actually, I don't know if you can call a brewery a small business. Or...
Yeah, it's a small craft brewery company, Banter & Company.
Really cool place.
Yeah, that was that was my brother and his best friend who decided they wanted to again, COVID ignited their entrepreneur spirit. They wanted to, change their life, their world. They were super passionate about it. Again, in the spirit of passion, I was all about it. I was like, guys, I support this because I support them. And it was a really easy decision for Johnny Cuts to help support them. I'm so happy we did.
I've been to a lot of breweries, right? I mean, I should drink a lot now. I go to drink. So, but that brewery is like top notch again, like the barbershop, a level to detail, even the wallpaper in the bathroom. Very, very cool, very nice, and actually had to try it a couple of times because you can't say you like it unless you try it. So that beer is really, really good beer, and honestly, the level of attention to even the way that they brew the beer there too is quite amazing. So a really cool project that you're into there as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got my seal of approval. So
Yeah.
so let's talk quickly about Johnny Cuts versus like Johnny the barber versus Johnny Cuts the businessman, and maybe then on top of that now Johnny Cuts the brand. Like when you started, you're cutting and you're hustling, but you're not. Again, you're always a hustler. And the moment I met him at the poker shop, or sorry, not poker shop, at the poker game, or in Bath Park there beside there. That's where we met.
Yeah.
He said, "Hey, come to Joseph, get a haircut. Come to Joseph, let's get the haircut." Right? And it's like so they're hustling there, but like talk about the difference of the three.
Well, as far as the barber goes, I'm that was the passion we talked about earlier, just of delivering that service, that cut, having that experience in the chair and wanting to be that guy who was the delivery of that delivery. I delivered that product. That was really important to me. And then Johnny Cuts the brand. I mean, it's funny, Paul. We were talking about this a little earlier today as we were getting ready to talk about the podcast, to start the podcast. We're talking about different ideas and brainstorming. And we're saying how, like I had mentioned to you, that when you're passionate about something, you're driven. It's funny how back to the boys and the family and the friends, they will help elevate you. So the brand kind of it was Johnny Cuts was born, and it really was like an infant, a baby. It was new life, and you're not sure exactly what they're going to be good at. Like just like your kids, your own kids. Like I have children, and each kid is unique, and you don't know where their secret abilities will lie. And just like same with Johnny Cuts, it took on sort of its own life, and working with other entrepreneurs and having ideas and brainstorming. So I kind of transitioned towards that sort of brand kind of became itself, and it's still growing. I'm really excited that we're working with a company called Loft Coffee, which we'll be doing a collaborative piece together, as well as with Aid Soaps. We're doing some collaborative work with them now. So we're growing into like our product lines now and collaborations with other small businesses. And again, the momentum keeps growing.
Your uncle Gus was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Your brother Danny is an entrepreneur, and as also with Stefanos. I mean, it's kind of run through your blood, of course, too as well, right? It's always been, and like you said, your parents, right? So it's been something that's always been a part of the hustle, and like, hey, we want to, but also providing good service as well. So, and then talk to and of course, I'd love to have Danny on for the show as well, have you maybe both of you guys on for Banter and Co.
Yeah.
Maybe at the brewery.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
I think that's something that's going to be in the cards, no pun intended. For an upcoming podcast, and maybe that'd be another thing. But Danny's also like an amazing guy, entrepreneur as well, right? So he'd be awesome to have on the show. But yeah, and then talk to me like Johnny Cuts the brand. Who would have thought we'd have these T-shirts and hats and Frere de Nos sweaters, limited print of 100.
Yeah.
When did this start coming about that you thought people were gonna see you as a brand name as well?
Yeah, that kind of, again, like going back to day one and starting your business and just taking care of your friends and family. That's you kind of look at other small businesses and big businesses alike, and you think, oh, that would be cool. It kind of sort of, for me, it just was a natural, next step, next level. We met our friends from further north. They came in and introduced themselves. This new business in town. What an amazing company. And we wanted to support them. We was just throwing ideas at. We came up with this idea of collaborating on a sweater. Beautiful. And we did 100 sweaters together. That was fun. So yeah, like again, the brand was just sort of something that happened.
And let's not forget, your face is also, it runs the place. It's also on the boards of Legends Arena, another Legends Sports, another one that we're going to have on the podcast, hopefully.
Okay,
well.
yeah.
But your face is now at Del Park Arena, aka formerly the Legends Arena. How cool was that? Well, when I saw that, I didn't even know. You didn't tell me.
And again, the city came in, and shout out to the city. Like they were looking at small businesses. Myself, Melina over at Further North. They took some pictures. They wanted to help elevate us and lift us up. Being in the community now for just shy of 9 years, and they threw us on some print. They threw us on the boards in the arena, and that goes a long way again. Next thing you know, that again going back to a natural growth of the brand, and the harder I work, it seems like the more positive things that are happening. Yeah, so it becomes almost like a snowball.
Was that ever the vision? Did you ever think that when it was all starting? Did you think?
I think deep down inside I wanted that. I was striving for that, but then it's one of those things that in the moment you're just living the day.
I'm putting on Johnny Cuts t-shirts at home. I'm just laughing sometimes. I forget, right? I have it on, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it is Johnny Cuts."
It's funny how it becomes.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's not even a big deal anymore.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It's fun. It's been fun.
And then the last thing I'll say is that you talk about COVID and the barbering. While you were away as well, and when something was going down, I got a haircut on Facebook from another hustler, a woman that cuts hair. My friend Kathy Templeton. She was hustling. She was one of those people cutting the hair and coloring the hair, and I'm taught. He wanted me to give her a shout out on the podcast, so there you got a shout out. And she's working in Bowmanville now. She's moved around a little bit. But you have you had one person that you're training. You still got a couple extra chairs. You're still looking for barbers, and somebody really wants to not only maybe open their business, maybe they want to work at Johnny Cuts and learn here. How could they do that?
Well, it's interesting. When I first opened the shop, I didn't have any intention. I put in a couple extra chairs. I had some space, and I really didn't think that that it wasn't the big plan or the goal of Johnny Cuts. I was simply just wanted to deliver a product to my customers, my friends, my families. That was maybe a little bit of a higher level. I wanted to bring a little bit of prestige to barbering. But what happened is I think when you do something like that, and people, like-minded individuals, started to find me, and that positive attraction, so to speak, it pulled us together. And over the years, I've worked with some tremendous barbers, really passionate barbers. I still work with two amazing barbers right now.
Really
I am apprenticing with another young gentleman right now. And when it comes to growth, I'm all about.
Well, it's what we talked about earlier, Mel and Patty. Without Patty and Mel, it's it feels different even without them. They're such great barbers, great people too. It's amazing to have. You've always had good barbers.
Oh yeah,
and good people. Everybody has to be and I hate to say this, people. If you want to work at Johnny Cuts, there's one prerequisite: you've got to be cool. And you gotta have style and flow. We just talked about this.
Style and flow. And passion. For me, it comes down to passion. There is a certain energy, a synergy that we look for. But ultimately, if you're a passionate barber and you're looking for work, absolutely come talk to me. I'm always down for having a coffee and talking shop with anyone. Even other young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that have been at it for a while. They're looking to to work together, just to get to know each other. I love meeting just like you. And I think that's a very common interest we share. It's learning and talking to other entrepreneurs and growing.
Always been mine. Let's talk about another local entrepreneur, GCW. The wrestling. He said it, the best $10 he's ever spent in his life.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
So we're talking about wrestling. If you're gonna, we love to have Dave Wildstar on this as well. We love to have the wrestling, but this goes back to I want to talk about a few things that we have in common. Poker was the first thing that we ever had in common.
Sure, love the game.
We both love the game, and we've had such a passion. We've traveled all over Niagara Falls, you name it, playing Port Perry, you name it, playing poker, but all kinds of weird places. And we've always, that's literally where we met, was Bath Park beside Sarah, my ex lived right beside Bath Park, and I just walked over. I was like, a poker game here, and there was and now we love poker. I think honestly because of that interaction and that mental. It's competitive too, though.
Sure,
it's really
It's a great
talk
game.
about your love of poker a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, well, I 2000 and when was it? I guess it would have been in around 2000. I think that's when the poker craze started, and I just enjoyed the game, specifically tournaments where you're at the table and you have a set of chips and you're competing against the other guys, and it's the last man standing and the mental fortitude that it requires. There's a lot more to the game than just throwing chips around and making money. I always played within my limit, like a poker tournament. If it was $50 to buy in, great, we're all in it. That's what I'm spending for the night. But there was just that sort of, and obviously, how many guys like yourself that I meet at the poker table, shooting the breeze, talking about life, and then we tend to talk about what we do and how we do it, and inviting those guys to the chair at that time. And I had more time. I didn't have a family back then, so I was able to spend a little more recreational time at the tables. And yeah, it's a great sport. If you want to call it that, some people do. Yes, yeah, does.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a fun little hobby of mine for sure.
Yeah, I was really my brother, of course, into it. My whole family loves poker. I was really into it, and I learned a lot about myself about poker. I learned trying to. Well, I played more competitively, but it was more like that mental warfare, learning to struggle through tough times, and when things aren't going well, you got to still in the game, still got to kind of hold yourself, and there's a lot. People think it's a lot of luck, kind of like maybe people are like, oh well, Johnny Lucky's going, you got 800 people coming here. Yeah, but that happened somehow. That was hard work, and there was a lot of ups and downs through the ebbs and flows of life, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, I just quickly touched upon wrestling. Of course, my son's named Owen after Owen Hart, and my big wrestling collection. And at the beginning, I used to still have some of it. Talk about collecting before.
Sure.
Of course, had more wrestling figures than I did. But the Face That Run the Place podcast was named after like one of the catchphrases from one of the wrestlers, AJ Styles. Was
Right.
Face That Runs the Place, and I thought that is such a cool name for for this podcast, because it really is getting to learn the faces that run the places. You know what I mean? So I thought,
Right.
well, and then wrestling, I'm like, how can we not
Yeah.
do this? How can
Sure.
we not
Yeah.
make this the name that you can see on the logo is a little cup of him I found on the internet.
Yeah. No, it's
So
smart.
yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. But honestly, like Johnny closed his shop today. It was already closed, but he literally had to like board it up almost and put a sign. I was gonna take a picture of the sign that he had out front that said, "We're actually closed today." You can't come in. So he shut the store down for the podcast for me, and I can't tell I really appreciate. I mean, being in here is humbling always, as just in general, and the fact that Johnny was the first guest and he took the time to let me interview him and also let give his insight to everybody and share his story with everyone. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Paulie. I really appreciate being your guest. I'm excited to listen to other future entrepreneurs.
He said that too. He's not
Thank
just
you.
saying that.
Yeah, and in closing, I just want to say, for anyone who's interested in the world of entrepreneurship, just keep moving forward. Reach out to entrepreneurs you aspire to be like. You'd be shocked at how many people I reached out to, and they're so open to talking about business, especially when they see it from a passionate individual. And trust in your family, your friends. This shop does not exist without my family, without my friends, without
100%.
Adrian James, who came in after 1 year of business
Oh,
and
and that
helped
was
me
the other
navigate through my business. And Adrian, for the a little backstory on him, he's one of my best friends. He is my best
I
friend.
was made to mention him.
And he came in after 20 years of experience in the business world, was able to help me hone my business on the business back end side stuff, leveling it up.
Super
always.
smart guy.
Yeah. So, and again, that's like using. My friend is he's more than a business partner. He's my best friend, as I mentioned. But having those people in your world, lean on them. They want to be there for you, and they'll help you. So trust in that too. You're not. This walk will not be alone. You'll be doing it with friends.
Exactly.
Like I am.
Help and support.
Yeah, I've never felt alone in this on this journey. So again, thank you, Paulie, for having
No
me as your
problem,
first guest.
buddy. All right.
And I look forward to hearing the rest of your podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Stay classy.